The Grand Council chamber was the largest hall in the known galaxy. It was built of shining stone and crystal, with walls that glowed softly, giving light without flame or sun. Around the great circle of the hall stood seats, each one shaped for a different race. Some were wide and heavy for the scale giants of the South Stars, some were tall and thin for the feathered ones of the cold moons, and some were low and smooth for the waterborne. Every few years, the council gathered to speak of peace and balance. They ruled over trade, over borders, over matters that touched many worlds. On this day, the chamber was full, and the air carried an edge of tension. Voices were low, yet restless, like waves before a storm. At the center stood the speaker, a calm figure whose kind had lived longer than most races. His voice echoed gently, asking all to bring their matters forward. Yet many eyes turned to the same place, where a leader with dark-ridged skin sat upright, his gaze fixed and burning. He was known for his pride, for his sharp tongue, and for never hiding what he thought. When the floor was opened, he stood. His voice was loud, deep, and carried far across the chamber. We speak of trade, of border lines, of small quarrels, yet we ignore the true danger. We ignore the rise of the humans. The word hung heavy. Some shifted in their seats. Some gave a short laugh, dismissing the thought. A soft ripple of sound spread through the chamber. Humans were young in the stars. They had not even seen 1,000 years among the greater races. Their fleets were smaller, their worlds fewer, and many thought of them as reckless children. But the speaker did not yield. He raised his hand and struck the air with his finger, pointing at the void above. Look at the reports. Look at their speed. No race has expanded so quickly. No race has fought with such will. They are not like us. They are dangerous. A voice from the high seats called back. It came from a tall figure with wings folded tight. Dangerous? They are but a young race. They play with machines and war as children play with sticks. They will tire. They will fade. The ridged leader's eyes narrowed. You are blind. You have not seen what I have seen. They do not fade. When they lose, they rise again. When they break, they heal stronger. Even their own history shows it. They have fought endless wars with their own kind, and each time, they grow faster, smarter, harder. Tell me, what other race can take ruin and turn it into power? A murmur spread across the hall. Some nodded, remembering tales of human battles. Others shook their heads, refusing to believe. From the low seats, where the waterborne sat in vessels filled with clear liquid, a voice bubbled out. You speak as if they are monsters. They are not. They are one more race among many. They trade, they speak, they live as others live. Why should we fear them more than any other? The ridged leader leaned forward, his tone sharp as a blade. Because they are not bound as we are. Look at us. Every one of our races has limits. We grow, and then we stop. We fight, and then we fall back. But they do not stop. They press on. They learn from every cut. They use fire, stone, machine, and mind with the same hunger. If they rise unchecked, they will not share this galaxy. They will claim it. The chamber grew louder now. Arguments rose. Some agreed with the warning. Others mocked it. One counselor, short and round, laughed and shook his head. You fear them because you see yourself in them. Proud, restless, never still. But fear makes poor counsel. We do not act on shadows. Still, whispers passed from seat to seat. The name of humanity spread like a spark in dry grass. Reports were remembered: colonies built in harsh lands, ships flying through storms where others would not dare, soldiers fighting long after defeat seemed certain. The speaker raised his hand for silence. The glow of the hall dimmed as the chamber obeyed. "You bring a heavy claim," the speaker said, his voice calm, though the weight of his words was clear. "Do you call for action against this young race? Do you ask this council to treat them as an enemy before they strike?" The ridged leader did not hesitate. His voice was hard, like stone against stone. "I do. Before it is too late." A sharp breath seemed to pass through the hall. To speak so was rare, for the council was built on peace. To call for war was to shake the very ground on which they stood. Yet the call was made. The speaker looked around the circle. Faces of every kind stared back, curious, doubtful, fearful, angry. No one could deny that humans were bold. No one could deny their speed. The question now was whether the council would see them as promise or as threat. The chamber sat in silence for a long moment. The future of humanity, though unknown to them, hung on the voices of beings far from Earth. And so, the first shadow fell across the path of mankind. The chamber of the Grand Council had not been this loud in many cycles. The ridged leader's call for action against humanity had broken the balance. Some shouted in support, others in denial. The air trembled with voices. The speaker raised his hand for calm, but even then, whispers rolled like thunder under the roof. At last, the speaker gave the floor to another. A tall figure, draped in silver cloth, rose from his seat. His kind was old, known for their wisdom and patience. His eyes were narrow, his tone measured. "We have seen young races before. Some grow bright, then burn out. Some strike with force, then fade to dust. Why should humans be different? Why must we act now?" The ridged leader answered at once. "Because they do not burn out. Because they do not fade. They grow faster than any we have known. Do you not see their numbers? Do you not see their reach? They spread to every corner they can touch. They do not wait for others to grant them space. They take it. If we wait, it will be too late." A voice from across the chamber joined. It came from a leader whose kind was known for strong fleets and proud banners. His words carried weight, for his people held many star systems. "I have seen their ships in the border zones. They are small, yes, but clever. They move in ways our fleets do not expect. They fight like no other. Even when outnumbered, they strike as if they will win. Sometimes, they do." The words gave pause to some. For the first time, the chamber grew still again. But then, from the water seats, a soft reply rose. "They are bold, yes, but that does not make them a danger to all. Many races fight hard when cornered. Do we strike them only because they have spirit? Because they refuse to bow?" The ridged leader leaned forward, his voice sharp. "Not because they have spirit. Because their spirit does not break. I tell you again, they are not like us. We know limits. They do not." The speaker let the silence stretch. Then, he asked the chamber, "If this council were to act, what would you propose? Speak it clearly. Do not speak only of fear. Speak of what must be done." The ridged leader did not hesitate. "We must form a war council. We must gather fleets from those who see the truth. We must strike the humans before they rise beyond our reach." The chamber erupted. Some cried out in shock. Some in anger. Some in support. To call for war on a young race was a rare and heavy thing. Many counselors stood, their robes and armor moving in waves as voices clashed. From a high seat, a feathered figure shouted, "This is madness. War without cause is a crime against the stars. Humanity has not attacked us. Humanity has not broken our peace. Will you make us the monsters?" Another voice, deep and heavy, rose in reply. "Better to be called monsters than to be destroyed. If we wait, they will strike first. Can you not see it? Their hunger for space will not end at their own borders. They will come for ours." The argument grew fierce. For every voice against, there was one in favor. For every call of peace, there was a cry of fear. At last, the speaker struck the floor with his staff. The sound echoed through the chamber, sharp and final. Silence fell. "The matter is grave," he said. "This council will not decide today. But the call has been made, and it will be weighed. Until the next gathering, each of you must speak with your own worlds. If there is to be a war council, it must be with the will of many, not the will of one." The session was ended, but the chamber did not calm. Counselors left in clusters, whispering, arguing, and plotting. Some walked with heavy steps, troubled by what they had heard. Others walked quickly, eager to carry the warning back to their home stars. Outside the chamber, beneath the great halls and shining arches, messengers carried words across the galaxy. Reports flew from world to world. The question spread faster than light: was humanity a threat? Should they be stopped? In the days that followed, the galaxy stirred. On some worlds, leaders spoke of the danger of human growth. On others, voices rose in defense of the young race. Merchants worried for their trade. Soldiers sharpened their plans. The stars themselves seemed to wait for an answer. And among the war faction, secret talks began. Maps were laid out. Numbers were counted. Fleets were measured. The ridged leader was not alone. He found allies in those who feared more than they hoped. Together, they whispered of the strike to come. In quiet rooms far from the chamber, plans took shape. They spoke of the human colonies in the outer rim. Small, new, and lightly defended. An easy target, they said. A first step. The ridged leader placed his hand on the map and spoke the words his allies wanted to hear. "We will show the council proof. Once the first human world burns, the others will join us. Then, no one will question the need for war." Far away, on a blue world under a yellow sun, humanity lived in peace, unaware of the storm that was forming. The decision had not yet been made, but the path was already opening. And in the heart of the council, the dangerous proposal had taken root. On Earth, the sun rose over oceans, mountains, and cities that stretched far across the land. Humanity had entered an age of peace within its own world. Nations that once fought now traded. Ships that once carried weapons now carried science and hope. Many believed that the wars of the past were finally behind them. But peace is fragile. High above Earth, in the orbiting stations that circled the planet, quiet signals moved through the void. These signals did not come from Earth's allies or its colonies. They came from the Grand Council. Encrypted and hidden, they carried words that were never meant for human ears. Yet humans were not blind. A listening post on the far edge of the system caught the first fragments. It was a small station, run by a handful of engineers and officers. They were used to silence, broken only by routine data. But when the strange code appeared, they leaned closer, puzzled. For days, the station worked in secret. Computers hummed, Patterns were studied, and voices from across the stars began to form. At last, the truth became clear. The council was speaking of humanity. Some races called for action. Some even called for war. The station commander stared at the translated words with disbelief. His hands shook as he read them again. Humanity, a threat? Humanity, to be stopped? The thought seemed unreal, almost like a cruel joke. But the code was clear. The voices were real. The message was sent to Earth. Within hours, it reached the hands of world leaders. In hidden chambers, they gathered. The room was heavy with silence as the recordings played. Alien voices, cold and sharp, spoke of fear, of human growth, of striking before it was too late. At first, no one spoke. The leaders sat still, as if waiting for someone to laugh and say it was false. But the truth pressed on them like a weight. Finally, one leader broke the silence. His voice was low but steady. They mean to destroy us. The words cut through the room like a blade. Others argued. We do not know that yet. Perhaps it is only talk. Perhaps the council will choose peace. But another leader, an elder with hair turned white, shook her head. When rulers speak of war, war often follows. They see us as a danger. That alone is enough. If they prepare to strike, we cannot stand idle. The chamber filled with debate. Some urged caution, others demanded action. Fear clashed with pride, doubt with anger. But beneath it all was a truth no one could escape. Humanity was no longer safe. The stars that had once felt open and endless now held eyes that looked back with threat. Outside the chamber, the news could not be kept hidden for long. Whispers spread through networks and streets. The people of Earth learned that powerful empires were plotting against them. For a moment, fear ruled. Some asked if the stars should be left behind, if humans should retreat to their home world and hide. But fear did not last. Something stronger rose in its place. On every screen, across every city, images appeared. Ships flying under human banners. Colonies carved into rock and ice. Astronauts walking under strange suns. A voice spoke over them, calm and unshaken. We are not weak. We are not prey. If they come for us, we will stand together. If they strike, we will endure. We are humanity, and we will not fall. The words spread like fire. Crowds gathered in squares and streets. Families who once worried about distance now felt the same bond. Nations that once argued now set aside their pride. The threat from the stars had done what centuries of talks could not. It had united Earth. Factories that once built machines for comfort now turned to defense. Engineers worked through nights to design new ships. Pilots trained harder than ever. Soldiers stood ready, not for conquest, but for survival. Humanity was no longer preparing for exploration alone. It was preparing for war. Far from Earth, in the colonies, the same spirit grew. On the cold mining worlds, workers took up arms. On the green farming planets, families stored supplies and sent their strongest to join defense fleets. On stations floating in the void, lights burned bright as crews drilled for battle. For the first time, a single banner flew across all human worlds. It was not the flag of one nation but the symbol of humanity itself. The leaders of Earth met again. Their faces were hard now, their voices clear. We did not ask for this. We did not seek war. But if they bring it to us, we will answer. We will defend not only our home but every human world. And if they strike us, they will learn what it means to fight humanity. And so, the course was set. The council had spoken in secret, but humanity had listened. The whispers of fear had become the call of unity. Above the blue planet, in the black silence of space, the first great fleets of humanity began to form. The storm was coming. Humanity would meet it head on. The void between stars was silent as always, but within that silence, fleets moved. From the heart of the war faction, vast alien ships drifted toward the rim of human space. Their hulls glowed with strange colors, their weapons charged with power that had destroyed worlds before. To them, the strike against humanity would be quick. They believed it would be clean, like crushing an insect underfoot. Their first target was not Earth. The war faction had chosen a small human colony, a mining world on the edge of the system. It was young, with few defenses. They saw it as the perfect place to strike fear into humanity and prove to the Council that war was the only answer. As the alien fleet neared the world, the colonists on the ground saw strange lights in the sky. At first, some thought it was a storm, but then the alarms rang. The colony governor rushed to the control center. Reports filled the screens: unknown ships entering orbit, large and many. The governor's voice shook but remained firm. Send the warning. Every channel. Tell Earth. Tell the fleets. We are under attack. The call traveled across the stars, racing toward human space. But the colony could not wait for rescue. Small defense ships rose from their docks. They were not grand, not heavy with weapons. They were quick craft, built for patrols and protection. The pilots knew they could not win against the massive fleet above, but they flew anyway. The first clash came in the dark above the mining world. Alien warships released blasts of light that tore through the silence. Human ships dodged, twisted, and struck back with weapons smaller yet sharp. The aliens expected them to scatter, to flee. Instead, the humans charged straight into the storm. One human pilot dove toward the largest enemy ship, his craft burning from damage. Instead of turning away, he aimed for the weak spot in its shields and fired at close range. The blast tore a hole in the alien hull before his ship was lost. The enemy commander paused, stunned by such reckless courage. Battle spread across the orbit. Human ships fought in pairs, in groups, always moving, never still. When one fell, another rose to take its place. The aliens destroyed many, yet every strike cost them time and blood. This was not the easy victory they had promised the Council. On the ground, the colony's people worked without rest. Families rushed into shelters. Miners turned drills into defenses. Engineers powered old machines, using them to fire at the skies. They knew the fleet above might crush them, but they would not fall without a fight. Hours passed, and still the humans resisted. The alien commander grew restless. He had promised his allies a swift triumph, but the humans were not breaking. They were adapting. Every new tactic the aliens tried was met with an answer. Every trick was turned back against them. At last, a human fleet arrived. They were smaller than the enemy, fewer in number, yet they came with speed and fury. Their arrival lit the darkness with fire. The alien commander, who had thought this battle would end quickly, now faced losses he had not planned for. His fleet began to retreat, their pride burned by the will of a young race that refused to die. When the last alien ship fled, the orbit was filled with debris. Human ships, though damaged and broken, circled the colony. Cheers rose from the shelters below. They had survived the first strike. The news spread fast. Across human worlds, people heard of the colony's defense. They heard how small patrol craft stood against mighty warships. They heard how miners and families fought as one. And they heard how, against all odds, the aliens had been forced to retreat. On Earth, leaders listened with solemn faces. They mourned the ships and lives that had been lost, yet they also felt pride. Humanity had shown its heart. Humanity had shown that it would not bend. In the Grand Council, reports of the battle shook the chamber. The war faction had promised quick victory, but instead, they brought back stories of fierce resistance. Some council members gasped in disbelief. Others shook their heads in fear. A few, silent and pale, began to wonder if they had made a terrible mistake. The ridged leader, who had called for war, still stood firm. He raised his voice and declared, "This was only the beginning. We will strike again, harder, stronger. Humanity will fall." But his words did not carry the same force as before. Too many had heard the truth. Humanity was not weak. Humanity would not fall easily. And in the hearts of many counselors, a new thought began to form. If a young race could resist so much, what would happen when they grew stronger still? The stars had witnessed the first strike. Humanity had survived. And from that moment on, the war was no longer about fear. It had become a test of will. The Grand Council chamber glowed with pale light as the delegates gathered once more. The walls that once seemed strong and eternal now felt heavy, as if the voices inside carried too much weight for even stone and crystal to hold. Reports of the first strike had reached every corner of the galaxy. Fleets that had set out with pride had returned in silence. They had not brought victory. They had brought loss, shame, and questions. The speaker rose from his seat and raised his hand. The chamber fell quiet, though the silence was uneasy. Many faces showed doubt, others fear, and a few still burned with anger. "The matter before us," the speaker said slowly, "is the battle at the human colony. We must hear the truth." At once, the alien commander of the war faction's fleet was called forward. His armor was scratched, his eyes weary. He had led ships believed to be unstoppable, yet now he stood before the council as a man who had tasted failure. He bowed his head slightly and began to speak. "We struck as ordered. The colony was small, the defenses weak. We believed it would fall within hours. But the humans did not break. Their ships were fewer, their weapons lesser, but they fought with a will unlike anything I have seen. They attacked without fear. They refused to retreat. Even when their craft were burning, they pressed forward. They forced us into battle longer than expected. And when reinforcements from their fleet arrived, we could not hold. We withdrew." A ripple spread across the chamber. Voices rose in disbelief. Some counselors leaned forward, their faces hard with anger. Others looked down, troubled by the words. One feathered leader spread her wings wide and cried, "You had the greater fleet. You had the advantage of surprise. How could you be driven back by such a young race?" The commander's voice grew firm, though his shame was clear. "Because they do not fight as we do. They do not follow the patterns we know. They take risks no sane warrior would take. They fight as if death means nothing and victory means everything. They fight as if every battle is their last. We could not predict them. We could not break them." Gasps filled the hall. The speaker lowered his gaze, while murmurs spread like wind through tall grass. From the low seats, the water-borne counselor spoke, his voice bubbling but steady. "Did I not say this war was madness? You thought to frighten them, but instead you have awakened them. You thought to strike a colony, but instead you have united a people. Do you not see? Humanity is stronger now than before your attack. Others nodded. A tall figure in golden armor struck his staff against the ground. The council was misled. We were promised swift victory. We were told humans would scatter like dust. Instead, you have made them harder than stone. You have turned whispers of fear into cries of defiance. The ridged leader rose from his seat. His voice thundered through the hall. Do not be fooled. This was one battle. One small battle. Humanity may resist, but they cannot stand against the full power of the council. We have thousands of fleets, millions of soldiers. They cannot hope to match us. They will fall if we strike again, harder and stronger. But the chamber did not answer with certainty. Too many had heard the commander's words. Too many now believed that humanity could not be broken so easily. One of the elder counselors, a being whose skin glowed faintly with age, lifted his head. His voice was calm, but each word carried weight. I have lived long. I have seen races rise and fall. But never have I heard of a young race standing against such power. The commander speaks true. They fight with a will we cannot understand. They fight not for conquest, not for pride, but for survival. And survival gives them strength greater than numbers. The chamber fell into silence. Every counselor felt the truth of the elder's words. To fight for survival was to fight with all that one had. And that was what made humanity dangerous. The speaker finally spoke again. The council must decide. Do we press on with this war, or do we seek another path? Already the stars whisper of our failure. Already the younger races question our wisdom. If we continue, we may win, or we may awaken something we cannot control. The ridged leader's eyes blazed with fury. If we do nothing, they will rise unchecked. If we let them be, they will spread, and soon they will challenge us all. I will not stand by while that happens. If this council is too weak, then my people will fight alone. The words rang across the chamber, shocking many. To defy the council was to break the unity of the stars. Yet the ridged leader seemed ready to do so. The speaker struck the floor with his staff, and the sound echoed like thunder. Enough. This council will not break today. But know this: the choice before us grows heavier with each passing moment. Humanity has shown its strength. To strike them again may cost us more than we are ready to pay. To leave them be may bring dangers in the future. The path is uncertain. As the council session ended, many left in silence, lost in thought. Some feared humanity. Some admired them. Others began to wonder if perhaps the ridged leader was right, that humanity might one day rise too high. But one truth had spread through every corner of the chamber, a truth none could deny. Humanity had survived the first strike. And the galaxy would never see them the same way again. The smoke of battle had hardly cleared before humanity began to change. What had started as fear now burned as determination. The first strike had shown the truth: humanity could be attacked, but it could also endure. The colony that survived became a symbol, and its story was told across every world. Children repeated the names of the pilots who had given their lives, workers spoke with pride of miners who turned drills into weapons, and leaders swore that such bravery would not be forgotten. In the shipyards of Earth, lights burned without pause. Factories once used for trade and comfort now built warships. Engineers studied every fragment of wreckage brought back from the colony battle. Damaged alien hulls, captured weapons, and broken machines were taken apart piece by piece. Every detail was written down, tested, and turned into something new. Humanity had always been quick to learn, and now it learned faster than ever. A young engineer named Myra stood before a group of officers. In her hands, she held a small device no larger than a box. She set it down, pressed a button, and a burst of light shot upward, forming a shield of energy. Taken from their technology, she explained, but reshaped for our ships. With this, even our smallest craft can survive longer. The officers exchanged glances, their faces showing the spark of hope. At the same time, soldiers trained harder than ever before. They were not only soldiers now, they were defenders of all humanity. In deserts, in forests, in frozen lands, men and women drilled for combat. On stations, they practiced boarding maneuvers. On colonies, they learned to fight in tunnels and mountains. Every world contributed, and every hand had a part. The fleets grew. Small patrol craft became hunters. Larger carriers carried new weapons, each designed to adapt quickly. Human captains studied alien tactics and then designed ways to twist them, break them, and turn them upside down. If the aliens struck again, they would not find the same humanity they had faced before. News of the preparations reached the alien worlds as well. Spies carried reports back to the Council. They told of new fleets, new weapons, and a united humanity. Some leaders grew worried, others scoffed, and still, the ridged leader pushed for another strike. Yet deep in their hearts, many began to wonder if they were waking a storm they could not control. Meanwhile, in the human colonies, life did not stop. Children still played under the strange skies, but now they looked to the stars with pride instead of only wonder. Farmers planted crops, miners dug deeper, and workers built homes, but above them all, the hum of human ships filled the air. Humanity had not hidden in fear. It had risen to meet the challenge. The first true counterattack began quietly. A fleet of human ships moved toward a small alien outpost near the rim. It was not meant to conquer, only to test. Human commanders wanted to know if their new weapons would work, if their new tactics would confuse the enemy. When the battle began, the aliens laughed at the small fleet that approached. But their laughter ended quickly. Human ships did not fight in lines or patterns. They swarmed like hunters, striking from angles no one expected. Their shields held longer, their weapons struck harder, and their captains adapted to every move. The alien outpost, though stronger at first, soon realized it was outmatched. When the fight ended, the humans stood victorious. For the first time in the war, humanity had not only survived but advanced. The news raced across the galaxy. A young race, barely out of its cradle, had taken a world from one of the oldest powers. The council chamber shook with the weight of the report. Some demanded peace talks at once. Others whispered of surrender. The ridged leader, though still loud, found fewer voices to stand at his side. On Earth, the victory was celebrated, but not with arrogance. The leaders spoke to their people with steady words. This is only the beginning. We must remain strong. We must remain united. We do not fight for conquest. We fight for survival, and survival is our strength. And so humanity pressed on. Every battle taught them something new. Every loss was turned into a lesson. Every victory, no matter how small, was a step forward. The galaxy had thought humans would be broken by the first strike. Instead, humans had risen higher. They were no longer seen only as survivors. They were becoming something more, fighters who turned weakness into power, and fear into courage. In the blackness of space, new fleets formed, their engines burning bright against the void. Humanity advanced, not as scattered nations, but as one people. The storm that the council had feared was no longer forming. It had already begun. The Grand Council chamber was quiet, but the quiet was heavier than any noise. Reports had come from every corner of human space. Fleets had grown, weapons had advanced, and humanity had begun to push back against the aliens who had thought them weak. Every counselor felt the weight of what had happened. The war they had thought would be easy had turned into something they could not control. The speaker rose and looked around the chamber. His face, usually calm, was lined with concern. "We have seen what we thought impossible," he said. "A young race, small in number and untested in the galaxy, has survived, learned, and advanced. They fight not for conquest, but for survival. And in doing so, they have become stronger than any of us imagined." The ridged leader, who had once called for war, sat in his seat with hands clenched. His eyes, full of anger, now held a trace of fear. "This is temporary," he said. "They cannot continue to grow at this pace. We will strike again, and this time, they will break." But the reports proved otherwise. Every strike against humanity had been met with new tactics, new ships, and new courage. Colonies that had once seemed vulnerable were now fortified. Engineers adapted captured alien technology to create shields, weapons, and fleet designs the aliens could not predict. Humanity had turned every loss into a lesson, every challenge into strength. A golden armored counselor spoke, his voice trembling. "They are no longer just survivors. They are becoming leaders among the stars. We have underestimated them. And if we continue to attack, we risk awakening a force that cannot be stopped." The chamber was filled with whispers and murmurs. For the first time, some members of the council questioned the war. Others stared at the ridged leader, realizing that the plan he had pushed so strongly might have been a grave mistake. The speaker raised his hand again. "We must decide. Do we continue this path of war, or do we find another way?" A pale counselor, one of the oldest in the chamber, rose slowly. "War is no longer an option," he said. "Humanity is not just a threat because of their numbers or their weapons. They are dangerous because of their will. They fight with courage, with creativity, with unity. To strike again would be to bring more of their power into being. We cannot win by force, and we may not survive the cost." The ridged leader slammed his fist on the floor. "You speak of caution, but caution will be seen as weakness. Humanity will grow, and then all our worlds will be at risk. We cannot retreat. We cannot wait." But the murmurs of the other counselors grew louder. Many now spoke against him, calling for peace, calling for restraint. They no longer saw humans as small or weak. They saw them as a rising power, a force that demanded respect. Outside the chamber, messages from human worlds spread across the stars. Every victory, every clever tactic, every step forward had been reported back. Humans did not celebrate arrogance. They celebrated unity and courage. They did not seek revenge, only survival. And that was what made them unstoppable. The speaker sighed. "The council has spoken in silence as much as in words. Humanity has proven itself. They have endured, adapted, and advanced. They are not our prey. They are our equals. Perhaps it is time to treat them as such." The ridged leader glared, but he was alone. His allies had begun to doubt, to whisper, to turn away. The council was no longer united in the call for war. It was divided, unsure, afraid of what might come if they continued. Across the galaxy, humans prepared for the future, but they did so with wisdom and courage. Their fleets were ready, yet they did not seek to destroy. Their engineers built, their soldiers trained, and their people worked together. Humanity's strength was not only in their weapons or numbers. It was in their unity, their will, and their refusal to surrender. The speaker looked at the council one last time. We cannot undo what has been done, but we can choose the path ahead. Humanity is no longer a threat to fear. They are a people to respect. If we ignore this, we risk not only our pride, but our survival. The ridged leader's voice fell silent. Around him, the council began to agree. The galaxy had changed. Humanity had risen from what was thought to be a weak and small race into something no one could ignore. They were not conquerors, yet they could not be conquered. And so, the council learned too late that attacking humanity had not brought them power. It had awakened it. Across the stars, humans continued to grow, not with hatred, but with courage. Not with conquest, but with survival. And the message was clear to all who watched from distant worlds: humanity was not a race to destroy, but a force to respect. In the dark reaches of space, under the light of distant suns, the fleets of humanity sailed forward. They were ready for any threat, united, and strong. The galaxy had thought they could be crushed, but instead, they had awakened a force that would be remembered forever. The turning point had come. Humanity had risen, and the stars themselves would never see them the same way again.